It begins in the silence. Most people think trauma is loud. They think of screaming, of breaking glass, of chaos. But for you, it was quiet. It was the sound of a door closing that you knew better than to open. It was the specific rhythm of a parent's footsteps coming down the hall. That told you exactly what kind of mood they were in before they even entered the room. You didn't realize it then, but you were being trained. You were undergoing a brutal education in dark psychology, not as the student, but as the subject. You learned to read micro-expressions before you learned to read books. You learned that the atmosphere of the house was your responsibility to fix. If mom is sad, I must be the comedian. If dad is angry, I must be invisible. And the world applauded you for it. Teachers, relatives, neighbors, they all said the same thing. You're so mature for your age. You're an old soul. You're so easy. They framed your survival as a gift, but this is the psychology of a child who was forced to grow up. That maturity, Wandimu, wasn't wisdom. It was a trauma response. It was the death of your childhood in real time. You became the emotional thermostat of your home. You adjusted your own temperature to keep everyone else from boiling over or freezing to death. But here is the dangerous part. When a child spends 18 years focused entirely on the internal states of others, they lose the ability to feel themselves. You didn't just become helpful, you became a ghost in your own life. Psychologists call this hypervigilance. Your nervous system got stuck in the on position, constantly scanning for danger, for shifts in tone, for the slightest sign of rejection. And now, look at you. You are the strong friend, the one who solves everyone's crises, but never shares their own. You are independent to a fault, because asking for help feels like admitting defeat. You are successful, functional, and reliable. But when the door closes, and you are finally alone, you feel a hollowness that no amount of productivity can fill. You feel exhausted, not just in your body, but in your soul. This isn't just burnout. This is the grief of the phantom child. The version of you that was supposed to play, to be messy, to be selfish, to be held. That child was buried alive, and they are still in there, waiting for permission to breathe. You have spent your entire life believing that your value lies in what you can do for others, rather than who you are. You believe that love is a transaction. I fix you, and in exchange, you don't leave me. But I need you to understand something crucial. This is not a personality trait. This is not just how you are. What happened to you? Physically rewired the architecture of your brain. You think you're in control? You think you're just responsible? What if I told you that your brain is actually addicted to the very chaos you're trying to escape? To understand why you can't relax, we have to look at the machinery of your survival. Let's look at the diagnosis. When you were small, your brain was developing. It was building the infrastructure for how you view reality. In a healthy childhood, the parents act as an external nervous system. They soothe the child's fears. They regulate the stress. But in your house, the regulators were broken. Psychologists have a specific term for this: parentification. It's a complete inversion of the natural order. It happens when the child is forced to meet the emotional or physical needs of the parent. There are two types. First, instrumental parentification. You paid the bills, you cooked the meals, you raised your siblings, you were the deputy parent. But the second type is darker and far more damaging. This is emotional parentification. This is when a parent treats their child as a confidant, a therapist, or a substitute partner. They told you about their marital problems. They vented their adult rage to you. They made you responsible for their happiness. To a child, this feels like intimacy. It feels like being special, but it is actually a form of engulfment. You were being consumed because your safety depended on predicting the unpredictable. Your brain enlarged its threat detection center, the amygdala. While other children were learning to play, your brain was bathed in cortisol and adrenaline. You were building neural highways for hypervigilance. You learned that safety is not a state of rest. Safety is a state of control. If I control the environment, I won't get hurt. If I predict the outburst, I can prevent it. This is why, as an adult, stillness feels terrifying to you. When there is no crisis to solve, your nervous system doesn't know what to do with itself. Peace feels boring. Worse, peace feels suspicious. You are biologically addicted to the stress hormones you grew up with. You might find yourself creating drama or procrastinating until the last minute, just to feel that familiar rush of cortisol. It's the only baseline you know. You survived. You built a fortress of competence and maturity to protect yourself. But a fortress is also a prison. To maintain this level of control, you had to make a sacrifice. You had to kill off a part of yourself that was inconvenient. You had to declare war on your own needs. And the weapon you used? It's something you're likely still doing every single day, convincing yourself it's a virtue. Let's talk about the mask you can't take off. In the animal kingdom, we know about fight or flight, we know about freeze, but there is a fourth survival response that explains your entire personality. The Fawn Response. When a predator is too big to fight and too fast to outrun, the prey has only one option left. Appease, be useful, be agreeable, be charming. If I make myself valuable to the predator, maybe they won't eat me. This is the origin of your people-pleasing. You aren't just nice, you are structurally incapable of disappointing others. Because to your inner child, disappointment equals danger. You became a chameleon. You learned to walk into a room, scan the emotional frequency, and immediately shapeshift into whoever that room needed you to be. But this safety came at a terrible price: self-abandonment. Every time you said yes when you wanted to say no, you were betraying yourself. This is why you cannot rest. Have you ever noticed that the moment you sit down to do nothing, a wave of anxiety hits you? You feel lazy. You feel like you're wasting time. That is toxic guilt. In your childhood, your value was tied strictly to your utility. You were only safe when you were useful. So now, as an adult, doing nothing registers to your brain as being useless, which triggers the primal fear of abandonment. You are running on a treadmill, powered by the fear that if you stop, you cease to exist. The psychoanalyst Alice Miller called this the drama of the gifted child. She wasn't talking about IQ, she was talking about the child who was gifted at feeling the needs of their parents. You developed a false self, a persona constructed entirely to be loved by others. This false self is successful, it is admired, it is the good child. But the true self, the one who has needs, who gets angry, who is imperfect, you locked them in the basement of your psyche 20 years ago. You think you have high-functioning anxiety. No, what you have is a civil war happening inside your body. The false self is exhausted from performing. The true self is furious at being ignored. And the friction between these two is what you call depression. It is the exhaustion of holding up a mask that weighs more than you do. But the tragedy doesn't end with you. If this was just about you being tired, maybe you could handle it. But this survival pattern didn't stay inside your head. It leaked out. It infiltrated your career. It poisoned your friendships. And most devastatingly, it is currently destroying your love life. Because a child who learned that love equals performance grows up into an adult who attracts a very specific, very dangerous type of partner, let's talk about who you fall in love with and why it always hurts. Freud called it the repetition compulsion. It is the psychological drive to recreate the trauma of the past in the present, hoping that this time you can fix it. This is why your dating history looks the way it does. You don't choose partners based on compatibility. You choose partners based on familiarity. When you meet someone secure, stable, and kind, you feel nothing. You call it no spark. You say they are boring. But when you meet someone emotionally unavailable, chaotic, or needing to be saved, your nervous system lights up like a Christmas tree. That isn't chemistry. That is your trauma. Recognizing a familiar playmate. You fall for potential, not reality. You become the nurse with a purse. You become the therapist. You think, if I can just love them enough, if I can just fix them, then I will finally prove that I am worthy of love. You are trying to save your parents through your partners, and it fails every single time, and this bleeds into your career too. You are the employee who never says no. You are the one staying late to fix mistakes that aren't yours. You have high-functioning codependency. You derive your self-worth from being indispensable. If you aren't needed, you feel invisible. So you overgive. You overwork. You manage your boss's emotions. You anticipate problems before they happen. And underneath the promotions and the praise, you feel like a fraud. You are waiting for the other shoe to drop. This is the root of your imposter syndrome. You know deep down that your competence is a defense mechanism, not a true identity. You are terrified that one day you will make a mistake, and the world will see the scared child underneath the suit. You live in a state of chronic exhaustion because you are performing a role you never auditioned for. And the tragedy is, you can't receive love. When someone tries to take care of you, you panic. You deflect compliments. You reject help. Vulnerability feels like death to you. You have become an expert at giving water to others. While dying of thirst in the middle of the ocean, you are alone in a crowded room, starving for a connection. You are too terrified to let in. So, here's the brutal reality check. You can keep doing this. You can keep finding broken people to fix. You can keep working until your body shuts down. You can keep abandoning yourself to keep the peace. But if you do, the child inside you, the one you locked away, will never forgive you. There is another way. But it requires you to do the one thing you have never done. It requires you to stop saving everyone else and finally come back for yourself. It's time to talk about the cure. The first step to healing is the hardest because it goes against everything you've learned. You have to stop trying to fix yourself. You treat your trauma like a project at work. You analyze it. You read books about it. You try to optimize your healing. But that is just your manager persona, trying to control the pain. You cannot think your way out of a feeling. You have to feel your way out. The goal is not to silence the inner child. The goal is to witness them. This is the core of reparenting. It sounds abstract, but it is practical. Close your eyes. Visualize the child you were at 7 years old, the one sitting alone in that room. Don't look away. Go to them and say the words that no one said to you. I am here. I am the adult now. I can handle the scary things. You don't have to protect me anymore. You can just play. You are relieving them of duty. You are firing them from the job of being your protector. Warning, this will hurt. When you finally stop running, the grief will catch up to you. You will mourn. You have to mourn the parents you never had. You have to mourn the years you spent managing everyone else's emotions. You have to mourn the innocence that was stolen. This grief is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of defrosting. The numbness is leaving your body. The pain means the nerves are waking up. You are coming back to life. As you heal, your life will change, and not everyone will like it. When you stop being a people pleaser, the people who benefited from your lack of boundaries will be upset. They will say you've changed. They will say you're being selfish. Let them. Disappointing others is a prerequisite for being true to yourself. Your no is the most powerful love letter you can write to your inner child. Every time you set a boundary, you are proving to that little kid, I will protect you. You didn't get to choose your childhood. You were drafted into a war. You didn't start, but the war is over. You don't have to be the soldier anymore. You don't have to be the therapist. You don't have to be the good one. You can just be. It's time to take off the mask. It's time to rest. You never had a childhood, but you still have a future. And this time, you get to write it.